nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars. Don't let them end.
Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of our planet's hottest entertainment with an edge from a galaxy far, far away. I'm Enfuego here, welcoming you once again to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That's right, just call me Fuego for short, and I'm stoked to have you here as I continue this interesting look at the special editions with discussion and comparison with the original versions of the original trilogy, and we are on to episode 5. That's right, originally the second Star Wars movie, but as everybody knows in timeline continuity, it became the 5th, and after the prequels and all this other stuff, but Empire Strikes Back, or The Empire Strikes Back to be specific about it. And for most people, this is their favorite. I always go to the Clerks thing though, because I am Randall and most other people seem to be Dante. The last for me, you know. Compare, I mean, Empire had the better ending, the darker ending. It's where the series definitely just became more adult and less goofy and less kiddie. So they basically took the great groundwork that George Lucas, writer-director, just basically laid out in the original film, and then we bring on a different co-scripter in, I believe, Lawrence Kasdan, and the name of the other guy eludes me, who co-wrote it. What the heck is it? Lee Brackett, but more so than anything else, the fact that the story was still by George Lucas, I guess, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But directed by Irvin Kershner. And a lot of people contend, and with good reason, that this film is much better from a directorial standpoint than the first film. And that's arguable, obviously, but I mean, it is darker in not just story, but in scope, in appearance, and I mean, it's iconic because it's the first appearance of the Imperial March, first appearance, if you're not including the holiday special, of Boba Fett, and you know, that awesome you know, Bosk and IG-88 and all those different, that rogues gallery of bounty hunters and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it took the series in a different direction, and I think that's why, and also, I mean, big twists with the whole Luke, I am your father bit. I mean, that blew people's minds at the time, you know? And once again, yeah, it took the series in a completely new direction, with that going into the, you know, the third and final film in the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi. So I love this film. I truly do. But as I said in my previous video, for me at least, I feel like the original Star Wars trilogy got better and better and better as it went on. Lots of people will contend that Jedi, unfortunately, recycled too much with another Death Star and so on and so forth. And in that regard, I will definitely say that, you know, Empire is the most unique of all the films, you know? And yes, you know, Ewoks are kind of goofy, and some of the stuff on Jabba's palace, especially in the special editions, you know, the most butchered of the original trilogy in the revision special editions, and then, you know, the 2004 revisions, and, you know, even more as time has gone on with cleaning up more special effects here and there and whatever. Yeah, it's interesting how Jedi is the one that was messed with the most, and especially from a musical standpoint, and we'll get into that once I finally review it here, you know, in the third and final bit of special edition coverage and stuff. But it's interesting how this is the one that was touched the least over time. Yeah, seriously. I mean, some of the effects on Toth are like touched up a little bit. You know, those weird two-seater planes and stuff. I still remember having one of those as a kid in the 80s, and I thought it was just so badass, man. And that is definitely where it's unique in the regard that we, you know, went to a completely different terrain. You know, we were on Tatooine for a good chunk of the previous film, and then in this one we start out on this ice planet, Hoth, and you know, it's really, really cool, the stuff that we get there. There's an abominable snowman, and I feel like they altered his, they added a little post-production-iness to him a little bit more, but really there's only a few key sequences where things were most definitely just significantly augmented. You know, maybe some of the space stuff, I guess, a little bit, but it's really hard for me to tell. One cool thing about this particular DVD release, and everybody talks about the fact that, oh, we've never seen the original films, you know, released, beyond VHS. Not technically true. Those are the ill-informed, because it's never happened in high definition, obviously, in either 1080p or 4K, but on DVD, there were these limited editions of the original trilogy where disc 1 was the altered, changed up versions, and then there's a second disc that has the original, untampered, uncut, and unaltered versions of the original trilogy. And so they're long out of print. They go for anywhere from 30 to, I've seen them go way higher, you know, but I spent, I think I spent 30 something on each of these because I have the entire original trilogy in this format. So, but really the only stuff that genuinely stands out is the fact that Boba Fett has a different voice, you know. He's actually got like an Aussie accent, kind of, you know, and I'm positive that had to do with the fact that, you know, just the way Jango Fett spoke, it would make complete sense to bring in a different voice actor, you know, when, you know, he's no good to me dead, and, you know, so on. But, yeah, that's the only thing that sticks out to me besides one particular sequence in Cloud City where there's like, it pans like closer and closer and closer and closer into Leia, you know, after they've arrived there. And, yeah, I mean, it's very prequel-y. You know, as I said in the previous video about A New Hope, this was obviously a test run for, you know, what was going to later happen in just a couple of years with the prequels. But yeah, this, along with A New Hope and later on Return of the Jedi, I got to see Star Wars on the big screen for the first time with the special editions. And, well, yes, when you watch them in higher definition, these improved versions, you know, that George just couldn't help himself about. It was just, as a kid in like 97, I can't remember if they did one a year or one every 6 months or something. I know it was a format similar to that, but here in Arizona, I saw them on the Cine Capri, the original Cine Capri that was on like 24th Street and Camelback here in Phoenix, and it was the biggest screen in the entire state. It's where I also saw like Independence Day and the Back to the Future films and Star Trek Generations. I mean, it was an iconic theater, and it was just so awesome to see these films that I had burned out at the local video store on VHS and Beta originally, back when Beta was still a thing. I remember the first format that I watched the trilogy on was Beta, because my dad was a Betamax guy. And Betamax, just like with, oh boy, I want to say HD DVD, it went the way of the dodo, unfortunately, but it was technically a superior picture and sound quality. And if you go over to Europe, and you see people with tape players still, they have the smaller videotapes, because of not the super small ones like you would put in camcorders and stuff, but it's like a VHS but less rectangular, I guess you could say. And so yeah, I wore out the Betamax versions, and then later on, as that format got phased out, the VHS versions of the original trilogy. So getting to see them on the big screen was a huge thing for me. And I mean, the lightsaber battle at the end, hand getting sliced off, terrific. All the, I mean, that was stuff that wasn't really messed with, you know. And also all the stuff with Yoda, and I know later on with time, if I'm not mistaken, some of the ship stuff with the X-wing maybe being raised, you know, looked a little bit more fakish and whatnot. But yeah, man, I mean, I can't hate on the special editions to the degree that a lot of people can. And honestly, Empire Strikes Back is most definitely the one that people have the least amount of opportunity to nitpick about, because there's really very little that is changed about this. And most would argue because it's the best of the original trilogy and, in turn, the best Star Wars film of all time. I don't contend that, but it is the second best Star Wars film of all time for me, and you know, if you prefer it to Jedi, which I do not, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I still respect the hell out of you, and I still adore this movie. It is so close for me to Jedi. What basically eases Jedi just past Empire is I love the original Jabba's Palace stuff, the original song there, and you know, I love the stuff with the Rancor. I mean, it's really, for me, it's the equivalent of the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, but much darker, you know, with all the different crazy creatures and whatnot, and that's the vibe that they were going for. I love the Sarlacc pit stuff. Yes, the movie drags a little bit in the middle, but I love everything with the Emperor. I'm stoked about his return. I was stoked when they brought him back in the comics in like Dark Empire and, you know, Empire's End and all that. So, I mean, yeah, as a kid in the 90s, as I will double down on from my previous video, when all that I really had was, you know, audio dramas and these like spin-off novels, like, you know, covering minor characters like Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina, you know, Tales from Jabba's Palace, and then you know, like the Thrawn stuff, and you know, just all of the stuff where they went even way past that with Mara Jade and things of that nature, and, you know, great video games, especially on the PC, you know, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and Rogue Squadron. Maybe that came a little bit later if I remember correctly, but that, in any event, I mean, and Dark Forces, man, I loved that first-person shooter so very much. But yeah, the 90s were a time where everybody was so fervently wanting more Star Wars, and yet we just didn't have any option on screen. So being able to even see stuff that wasn't quite of the original capacity, I didn't particularly care, and for that reason, especially since it was my first theater experience with the films, I still don't get as uppity and just aggravated about this particular, you know, this particular incarnation, you know. And as I said, Empire being the one that was messed with the least, it's where there's the, you know, least opportunity to really badger things. And I mean, man, were they tied on the asteroid and they're in the mouth of the creature, and all the Yoda stuff is really terrific. Luke going into the cave and decapitating, you know, and finding out, you know, that Vader is himself, and just all of that weird stuff. It's such a dark, interesting film. Frank Oz is so great as Yoda, and it just like makes the adorableness of Baby Yoda like even more apparent, you know. So yes, I love Empire Strikes Back, The Empire Strikes Back. You know, it's just, people will correct you. Trust me, in the nerd sphere, I love it, and yet it's tough at times too because people are such nitpickers. But yes, I love The Empire Strikes Back. I just don't love it quite as much as Return of the Jedi, but there you have it. This is an exceptional film. The John Williams score, I mean, I understand why a lot of people prefer it, but yes, once again, it's the most tolerable of the films where alterations have been made because there are so few. So, I have been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. I've been doing Star Wars coverage all year, starting with reviews of the prequels, including the, 20th anniversary of, you know, everybody's favorite, Phantom Menace. And it's funny because some people contend Attack of the Clones is worse. I don't think so personally, but that's just me. Go back and watch those reviews of the original, the prequel trilogy. You know, leave some comments, say what you think. I also have reviews of some of the newer novels that came out this year, like Master and Apprentice, Dooku Jedi Lost. I mean, there's some really great reads. I also just put up a Lords of the Sith, which is a cool, like, post-prequel era, but really well before, at least a number of years before the main trilogy starts. And so that book is great. It takes place half on Ryloth and the other half like up in space, like near it. And you know, it's the beginnings of the rebellion, like an incident that could have helped spark, you know, more interest in rebellion beyond just stuff on Ryloth and the persecution there and stuff. And plus, it's got Vader at his most ruthless. Like, if you want something on par with the end of Rogue One, Lords of the Sith is a terrific book. It's not just all Star Wars stuff. Star Wars! It's not just all Star Wars! Yes, there is also all kinds of rad status stuff, from comic book movies to some of my favorite dramas of the year, you know, Between Wild Rose and I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Lots of coverage from the Phoenix Film Festival earlier this year. Comedies like Good Boys, Knives Out was so good. That was another recent one that I watched. Probably going to put up Jumanji, The Next Level, or whatever the hell it is, review after I finish the Star Wars coverage this week. So yeah, everybody, lots of awesome stuff, and I hope you appreciate my insight because I appreciate y'all stopping through. But if you're over here and for whatever reason do not know about the show, that you can find me on far more frequently, that being youtube.com/thehorrorshow channel. That is where we do at least one episode every single day, whether it's an unboxing, a film review, a trailer reaction. Sometimes we do convention coverage and celebrity interviews and stuff when we're out at various festivals and cons and stuff like that. Pretty much everything under the spooktacular umbrella, so to speak, is fair game, and we just wrapped up our Indiegogo for a Wes Craven's New Nightmare sequel fan film called Dylan's New Nightmare. My partner in crime, Cecil Laird, is writing and directing it. My band Chiron has a song that's going to be in it called Another Nightmare is Here. So yeah, lots of cool stuff there. Just search Dylan's New Nightmare and you will find a little teaser trailer that Cecil put together earlier this year. And it was a lot of fun to be on set and helping out, doing some PA stuff and just observing the process. It was pretty dope. And then lastly, on the Will Escridia YouTube channel, every single Monday evening, provided there's no conflicts, which does occasionally happen and we have to reschedule. But we do a program called Show Business, #Tizzle Show Business, and that is where myself and Lindsay Menze from My 2 Cents of Nonsense, along with the showrunner on Will Escridia, none other than the badass himself, CP, discuss weekend box office. We look ahead and make some predictions to the weekend that is yet to come, and also have a little bit of discussion about some of the biggest entertainment news stories of those previous 7 days. So I have been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status as always, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, haha, I shall say hasta luego, Cinemigos, but I am hopeful that we get to share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until that awesome instance transpires, remember, may the Force be with you always.